What is up, YouTube? McIntyre here. Today I wanted to bring you guys something new. Somebody suggested that I do this, so I decided to give it a try. I wanted to talk about kind of a pre-BlizzCon expectations, things that I expect to see out of the meta, and then talk about each of the teams, their matchups, their brackets, where I think teams will make it, how I think teams will make it, and just kind of talk more about the competitive scene of Heroes, as there aren't many people out there that are really breaking down these teams and talking about like what we should expect to see. And today in this video, hopefully I can accomplish that. There's a ton of information here, and this is gonna be a one-shot no cuts video because I want it to be more like a podcast, but have the video aspect of obviously my webcam talking to you guys. They do this stuff for like Dota and League of Legends, but we have like Town Hall Heroes and State of the Nexus, which are both not exactly what I'm targeting here, as I'm not talking so much about Heroes as like the new things that are happening in Heroes, but I'm focused more on the competitive aspects and kind of going into tournaments, what we should be looking for as a spectator. And so with this previous week kind of being done, I wasn't aware that they were going to have a lot of the top 8 already played through. I thought they were just going to do group stages before BlizzCon, but it makes sense since BlizzCon this year is only 2 days instead of 3. But so I kind of started this video a little late, but I'm going to go with it as is and talk about right now what I expect to see after seeing last week. So going into this event, honestly, I had a suspicion that globals were going to be dominant, and by that I mean Brightwing was going to be first banned. I still think that this could happen and develop, but Brightwing is going to be first banned, or ETC, because of stage dive, and we were going to see a resurgence of Tahaka and Falstad and Medic, even because of the medevac and things that get you around the map quickly because of the bigger sizes in the map and moving around the map and finding opportunities through this utility, even to the point that I was suggesting that we would see Illidan with Hunt. And I'm not sure if we've seen it this tournament. I think maybe MVP Black played it against one of their lower tier teams, but I still think that it will be something that will come up because of its global pressure, right? And I honestly know for a fact that ETC was going to be dominant, and he has been, but with this whole stage dive coming out of him, he's dominating the game right now. And I want to know if, teams are going to start banning it. It hasn't really seen many bans up until this point for some reason. We're still seeing a lot of Malfurion bans. We're seeing some Zarya bans. A lot of people are banning Illidan. So the Illidan kind of idea did come up, and we are seeing it within the banning phase. But I still think the ETC and the Brightwing are the two heroes that we might see more people start banning, and I hope that they do. With that said, though, you have teams like MVP Black that are still prioritizing Murden over ETC. So, it's weird that even when I think that this kind of hero is dominant, these dominant teams still aren't taking them. But if you look at, I picked a random game of Fnatic versus Ballistics, as I think that Fnatic had a very good chance to beat Ballistics. I think they slipped up a few times, and the Koreans are obviously still dominant. But if we look at game 2 on Towers of Doom, Ballistics was first pick, and they banned ETC, which is something that I thought would happen. And then Fnatic banned Illidan, so there's the Illidan ban. And then we first picked the Muradin, and what I was surprised was Fnatic then here went Malfurion Falstad. It does stay true to the having a global, so you do have the Falstad for global, but they don't take the Brightwing there. Instead, they take the Malfurion. So. And then we have like MVP Black still banning Malfurion every game. So for me, it's confusing when I want to suggest that there's a global meta and that it will come, but we're still seeing this Malfurion pick instead of Brightwing here. I guess on Towers of Doom, Malfurion is a really strong pick, but the cool part here is now Ballistics then respawns with an Abathur, and this is going to give them back the global power, right? And if I look even at game 1, we have Fnatic. This is a bit different because it's on Infernal Shrines and it's not so global based, but Fnatic first picks ETC here, so we're seeing a fight for the stun tank still, obviously, in this meta. The Illidan ban is surprising, but not so surprising as it always tends to come out during this tournament. And I think the one pick that a lot of people would, not be surprised about, but maybe the most surprising pick has been the Dahaka. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Dahaka beats Alarak in lane. And we all expected to see tons of Alarak in this tournament. And we've seen it, but I don't think near as much as we would have assumed to have seen it. So it's very interesting. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this meta develops. I mean, we'll definitely see in this next week at BlizzCon the fight over the stun tanks. If first pick bans stun tank, the second pick bans stun tanks, and no team has one. And then in which case, do we start fighting over the Joanna Tyrael, or does the Dahaka come up, right? And looking at these bans and picks, like, it could happen. The other is, like I said, the Brightwing. Are we going to start seeing Brightwing bans picking Malfurion, as some people find Malfurion to be stronger than Brightwing? I'm not really sure. I do know that global will continue to be important, and having at least one way to soak on a map effectively and then maybe rotate or fly in on a gank is going to affect these games coming up. So I'm really interested to continue to see, as a lot of the time with these early games, a lot of people don't show things, and because of that we don't really get to see everything. There's a lot of strategy. Like, for example, when we played on Naventic, we would strike a certain hero a multiple number of times so that teams suggested that we didn't like said hero. And then against them, we would pick it instead of banning it, because they would then expect us to strike that hero at the beginning of the draft, and then you don't. And then you play the hero, and then you kind of set the other person off. So with MVP Black, for example, with this constant Malfurion ban, this could be an example of that, right? They're building up to beat Ballistics. That's what they care about. So they're sending false signs in order to prep for that game. Okay. So, but we'll see again how it all pans out. It'll be really interesting. I can't wait. I will be at BlizzCon this year, so I'm super excited for that. If you guys are gonna be there, make sure to swing by and say hi to me. I'll probably tweet something about where I'm at or what I'm doing. I do plan on watching most of these games. Since the event is a 2-day event, though, there's gonna be so much that I want to do while I'm there, so it'll be hard to decide if I watch everything, but I know the final few games I definitely want to see if they're going to be good games. So so now what I really want to talk about is, now that we've kind of talked meta and what I expect to see more of, I really want to talk about matchups and where I think this tournament is going to end up. Although, we're NA and we want NA to do well, NA is currently in the lower bracket of both brackets, and they're going to have to make their way out. I think when we look at these brackets, currently we have Denial versus Zero G. Looking at Team Denial, I think they're a very confident team. They actually live off of their confidence. So it's weird seeing them play against these other teams that are, world-class teams, especially MVP Black, and then just losing all of that confidence. And it's like draining I don't know. I'm trying to think of some sort of metaphor for someone getting drained of their power, like a Superman with kryptonite, but that's a terrible example. But denial lives off of their confidence, and when they're playing against someone that they're not confident playing against, you see it in their play. You have a player like Glorong who is considered one of the best melee assassins in NA, and he does things that sometimes you shouldn't do because you're confident about doing them. You think you can outplay the enemy. But then you play against a team like MVP Black, and when you do said things, they punish you. And then it puts him in a place where he feels like he can't do those things. Another player that's much like that is iDream. He plays off of the fact that he thinks he's better. And when you play against someone that is equally, if not better than you, then a lot of your play style kind of changes. And I think that's what really happened with Denial in this tournament so far, is they were kind of caught off by this kind of change in how the game works when you're playing against the best teams and not just playing against NA. And so I'm interested to see where they go now, because they are going to be playing against Zero G. I will say shoutouts to Calf, because I do feel like his positioning as a warrior, even against MVP Black, was still very strong. He played the warrior position correctly. So for that, I commend him. I really think his positioning on the map was good. It is unfortunate that they had to play against MVP Black, and then they had to play against Ballistics. They still have the losers round, but they're going to have to figure out a way to win the game without doing it off the idea that the other team is weaker than them. They have to win the game off of a concrete strategy, and then they have to execute that strategy on the chance that the other team plays it just as well as they play it, they still win. So that has to happen within the draft, or how they set up and play the game. So we'll see. Zero G, the China scene. So we'll talk about Zero G now. So the Chinese scene seems kind of off right now. I think ever since E-Star broke up, we have Zero Gaming that's I think they're a mix between Panda. I can't even think of the two teams that merged, but I want to say Zero Gaming is a merger team. EDG and E-Star, I want to say, or no, EDG and something else, Panda Gaming. So yeah, so looking at Zero Gaming, they're a team I think that is very Chinese meta. They still prioritize the Sylvanas pretty heavily. The Tassar Protecticomp. They were one of the few teams that I saw use the Jaina. Most of the regions don't use Jaina, but the Chinese meta still does. They also use the Zul pick as melee assassin. Very uncommon for all other regions, really, but they like to do that. I mean, I remember playing against E-Star, and they would pick Zul as melee assassin, and he would just kind of run up to and root, even on maps like BOE. Just so you hit that first root, and then you can collapse on top of the root. So I think most of their team and play comes from their ranged assassin SK and their support player Gemini. So if Gemini is on heroes that he feels comfortable on, I think that they have a good chance against Denial. But I do want to say Denial has an opportunity playing against this team right now. It'll be interesting to see, like I said, if Denial can come up with a plan to beat them by looking at their drafts and kind of analyzing what they prioritize, what maps they like to play, and then what maps we should play against them that beats their playstyle. They're aggressive. They want to fight us. If we play maps where they can't fight us and they can't be aggressive, maybe that's how we beat them, right? And then meanwhile, Zero Gaming against Denial should focus on, how can we fight them? How can we put them on the back foot and make them play our game? Because if they have to play our game, then they will collapse under the pressure of that. So we'll see how that goes. And then obviously, if whichever team wins that, will go into the lower bracket against Fnatic. Talking about Fnatic, I really like this team a lot. They're incredibly... This team is confident, and like Denial, I think their confidence shows more so in their play, as I believe they're one of the strongest teams in the game. Their connection with each other is very apparent when you watch them play. This is one of the stronger things about the European region compared to the NA region. These guys look like they go to the movies and watch movies together. They like each other, they like hanging out, they like playing games together. And I think that's so important when it comes to stuff like this. And it's going to help them continue to be a successful Heroes team. Plus, in defeat, they look towards positives rather than just thinking that they're shit and can't win and looking at the negatives, right? They want to continue to improve as a team, and you can see that from their personalities and how they play in game, you know. I have high hopes. I mean, these are the Chinese Slayers right now, so they've beaten both Zero and E-Star. So they've shown that they can play, and like I said, even in the Ballistics games, they played really pretty well, I want to say. So a lot of this team comes from, to be honest, my current favorite player on the team would be probably Schwimpy. He's very flexible. If he gets on a strong pick, he plays well, and a pick that he's comfortable with. As well as, I want to say, the kind of Breeze, Quacknix, synergy. If that's really in line, then Fnatic has a really good chance. But I would say for me personally, if Schwimpy gets on a good hero that he likes, then I think this team has a really good chance. I mean, also honorable mention, Smexy and Wubby are both really great players as well. So I want to say that Wubby is one of the better melees in Europe, and Smexy, it has really good cleanses and ancestrals and ults every once in a while. So like I said, I just think this team's strength, if you had one player to look out for Schwimpy. But this team's strength comes from their connection with each other and their team atmosphere, more so, you know, than like, oh, this team is just mechanically godlike. It's more than that with these guys. But I really have high hopes for this team. Sadly, I think that either Denial or Zero Gaming lose to them. So that lower bracket for me kind of closes out. And one of those players one of those teams is going to have to play against MVP Black. So at the end of the day, it's tough. But we'll see if Fnatic gets some hype. Maybe they can take MVP Black. So we're going to look at the other loser bracket now, which is going to be Dignitas and Astral. So Astral being the I don't want to say overhyped team at the moment, but definitely had a lot of hype going into this tournament. I guess it's well deserved, as NA recently has pretty much crapped the bed. Like, the scene is pretty weak here. So we have a team of all players that have been good players throughout the Heroes, kind of history, and now they're dominating because they've stayed connected. They all like each other, and they're on the same page, just like Fnatic. I think this team feeds off of the fact that they can win draft, and most of their games come from beating the other team in draft, having a better strategy, and then executing it properly. And when we saw them play against Please Buff Arthas, like, all of the things that we knew about Astral fell apart. The way that they draft, the way that they play, like, it all just, it was not all there. I don't know. We saw, like, a Sonya pick. That's not very, normal for them. You normally see double support out of them. We see, I want to say double tank with Fury and Cattle tanking. We don't really see melee assassins much anymore. Maybe a Thrall occasionally, but it was very interesting when this team decided to draft so differently than what they normally have. I think because it was a world stage. This pressure that this kind of creates can be taxing and make you just go against everything that you originally thought, right? And I think that's what's happening to this team. So, although I actually don't think that Dignitas is much better. It could honestly go either way. This is going to be one of my favorite series of this tournament. I think this is a very close game. Astral and Dig are very close in skill level. And it'll kind of come down to, and both kind of feed off of the fact that they have flexible drafts and can do a lot. So I think this game will feed off of like who can outthink who in draft, and we'll see a lot of really cool things coming out of this game. For Astral, I would say my player to look out for is going to be Cattle. Cattle is kind of the conductor of this team in the first place. So if Cattle gets a hero that, again, he's good with and enjoys playing, then I think we'll see positive things out of this team. The other honorable mentions are, I think, Psalm and Fury. Psalm has kind of come to show that he is a very mechanical player in the game and can play very mechanical heroes well, as we see with his Alarak and his Lu Ming. And then we have Fury, who, when he's on comfort, because of his past experience with the game, he's not afraid to take a risk on an engage or something like that, a call for his team that can help his team get ahead. So both of those picks are my honorable mentions, but I do think that this show is going to come down to Cattle a lot of the time. And, you know, we obviously have Coffin Lookwood as their rock player, the player who doesn't make mistakes. So looking at Dignitas now, another very hyped team. The hyped team of Europe. All really good players. Again, I mean, all these teams are awesome players. Dignitas, to me, has always, you know, come off as the team that drafts well. And we're going to have to see if that is going to be enough for them here to beat Astral, as they're going to be playing against basically the mirror. They have very flexible players with flexible kind of hero pools. Both Athero and JPL can kind of do everything, although it seems like JPL has been playing main tank, while Athero has been playing melee assassin. I'm not really sure I like that personally with this new roster. I will say that I think that this roster was much stronger when it had Alex, because Alex could maintain while JPL could flex, and I like that a little bit more. Even with Athero being one of my like homies, I don't think that the team is the same that it was once with him. For me, in Heroes, it's all teams need a selfless, player. And back when Team Dignitas had Alex, JPL was that player, and he could just kind of play whatever. And with a new Athero pickup with JPL on tank, they lose that flexibility. At least it feels that way. We haven't seen many of their games, but that's currently how it feels for me. And in which case, it made the team a bit weaker. It's still hard to say, as we really only saw this team play against MVP Black. So we haven't seen much. But I have a good feeling that, like I said, the Astral Authority versus Dignitas game will be one of the best ones during this tournament. So, I mean, the players for me to look out for are going to be JPL and honestly Mine. If Mine can get one of his favorite mage picks, either KT or Gul'dan, I think he can put on a showing. And then if JPL can get a Murden or ETC, I think he'll be in a really comfortable spot to carry the team. And obviously we have, you know, strong bakery support player. Athero is one of the best mechanical players in EU. And then Snitch has always earned his spot as a top range assassin. So this team's really good. It's hard to say if this team's better than Fnatic at the moment, but I think that they're very close in skill level as far as the European scene goes. So yeah, so that's gonna be, I think, awesome series. I can't wait for that. That's gonna be one that I want to have a seat for at BlizzCon to watch. So now, if they end up, whoever wins this game plays against PBA Gods. PBA just coming out of nowhere and just started slapping people. This is obviously the team that beat Astral, that kind of upset NA for a little bit. They've always been a really strong team. I think what a lot of the time happens is teams underestimate PBA going into the set. You know, if we look at who was it? Gale Force. They lost to PBA too, right? This team knows how to play the game. They play in the Asian region, so they play against the Koreans. They can practice against the Chinese. They know how to play. Like, they have their own style, and they play it correctly, right? So, this is a team that, if they can obtain the heroes that they like to play, then they're going to dominate sort of the game, right? If you can set them on things that they don't like playing, they're going to have a much harder time. So with Astral, they gave them, I would say, everything that they wanted. You have the God Dog pick on Falstad. Scroll is a very reliant stun tank warrior. And I think, like, Astral kind of, like, went with a Korean. They tried to be the Korean team against them instead of playing their NA style. Like, we saw a first pick Illidan. When does, things like that. I don't think that this team is going to go much further, as I've played against them previously. We played against them in Sweden and ended up 2-0ing them on Naventic. But I don't think that they're a bad team. They are not a bad team at all. They can win if you let them, but I think that as long as you keep them off of their comfort picks and make sure they don't have stun tank, then they're not near the team that they normally are, right? If you look at, against MVP Black, their Game 2 draft where they went the Tyriel with Judgment, with a Nova, like, that's something that they could do, but you want them to do that, right? You don't want the Game 1 where they have Zeratul ETC. That's what they really want to play. You don't want to give them that. You want to make them play the Chen double ban stun tank, make them play Joe or something like that. I think it'll make this team a lot weaker. The one hero that I want to look out for, or the one player, is Baphomet. I want to say is how you pronounce his name. He's their melee assassin player. For the most part, in their games, he looked like a dominant force. So if he gets heroes that he's good at, he's going to be the one that's going to take control of the games for PBA, as well as Skrull. If Skrull can get a stun tank, I think he'll be in a really good place as well. So, but I will say whoever wins that Astral Dig game against PBA probably beats PBA there. So it'll be a good series, honestly, and that's a pretty good bracket for both of those teams. I think they then go on to play against Ballistics. Hey, I would not complain. All right, so the last two teams that we're going to talk about are our current overlords, the Koreans. It's hard to really say anything negative about them, as they're not really slipping up. I mean, I will say that Dignitas Game 1 against MVP Black does show that they're not, like, indestructible, and it actually gives a good kind of hype to Dignitas. I apologize for not mentioning that, Dignitas, but yeah, I mean, MVP Black it looks like they have everything taken care of. They know what they want to draft. They're not, if they don't get a stun tank, they know what they want to play. All their drafts, I want to say, at the end of every draft, I'm like, they've won the draft. I think they currently have the most synergy in the game. Actually, they're behind Ballistics as far as synergy goes, but they have more mechanics than Ballistics does, which is what gives them, most would say, the upper edge. They did lose, obviously, to them, but they also have a very flexible hero pool in their flex player, Kyocha, who, without trying to be biased, is currently probably my favorite player in the game. Just because I've always admired his ability to play everything. And if you look at his drafts right here, he plays Tracer, he's on Tyriel, he plays Abathur, he plays a game of, like, Falstad. Like, these are all heroes that are completely different he plays them at the highest level, better than people who play the hero only exclusively. He plays them better than those players. So I really admire that about him as a player. Obviously, for me with this team, the true carries of the team are going to be Sign and Mary Day. So if they can get strong picks for those two, then I think the team will be very successful this tournament. Rich at this point can play anything, and Sake so can he. The pools for both melee and range are currently really high. We can still see double tank out of this team. We can see double support, double range. It doesn't matter. They can play it all. This is going to be the team that we still all want to see lose, but probably won't. So until a new team with the same level of synergy shows up, you know, with L5 we got that, or Ballistics, their position on top probably won't change. So I think that they're a really good team, the best probably in the game, and we should expect either an upset or Ballistics taking them down. So we'll talk about Ballistics now, and then that'll be it for this video. So Ballistics, this new team that came out of nowhere, honestly. I mean, their core players are Noblesse and SCSC, both from TNL. I think Noblesse was the best player on TNL, same with SCSC. I think those two were the strongest and didn't get enough credit, so I'm glad that they found another three that are really strong. We have Nacho Jin and Sawyer both came over to NA and we're playing HL here. Both really funny players. You can tell this team really wants, like, feeds off of positive vibes and really wants to prove themselves as players. All of them have something, you know, something to kind of prove that MVP Black isn't the best team. Tempo Storm isn't the best team, right? Like, you can still make a new roster and dominate the top teams. So this team did that for a lot of players. When there's a team that's dominating, it seems almost impossible to kind of be able to stop them. But if you put in enough work and you get the right group of 5 together, then you kind of create what Ballistics has. Looking at Ballistics drafts, I think, like, the main thing is going to be, does Noblesse get Murden? And if so, like, you might have a bad time. And the other would be, like, honestly comes down to if Nacho gets a range that he likes as well. So I think in one game, if Nacho gets, like, Falstad or Vala, he's going to play really well. We have SCSC now. He looks really strong on Tychus. So they have that going for them. I mean, yeah, I don't know. This team is going to be the team that will beat MVP Black. And if a team beats them, then they will have to be the team that will beat MVP Black. So if someone can show off enough strength to take these guys out, then they can muster that same strength to take down MVP Black. It'll be really interesting to watch them play against whoever they have to. But I mean, for the most part, this team is just about as good as MVP Black, if not better. It's so hard to say. They're both incredibly strong teams. But yeah, my 2 power players for this team are going to be Noblesse and Nacho Jin. So if Noblesse gets ETC or Murden, your team's going to have a hard time, as he positions so well in these kind of rotations on maps, and he just creates pressure by being on the map, just like Sign does. And then Nacho Jin, again, he's really good with utility range. Like, he played a game at Avatar where he was soaking, but it seemed like he was in every team fight, and he soaked so much as well. So overall, like, looking one more time at this bracket, I'd say, you know, we'll see if Denial can beat the Chinese team. If they can they take down Fnatic? That'll be very hard. We'll see. Denial is just going to have to come back on their playstyle. 0G, can they take that aggressive Chinese meta and beat down Denial? Kind of give them a piece of their own medicine. Fnatic, great synergy on that team. I think it seems like a healthy team. So I'm excited to watch them. We have the Astral Dig, probably the best game of the series, honestly. One to watch. Could go either way. Dig looked really good though against MVP Black. So, and meanwhile, Astral lost to PBA. PBA round 2, I think whichever team comes out of round 1 can probably beat them. Although PBA is the PBA gods right now, so they can upset anyone. And then we have, MVP Black and Ballistics, who's when you play Mortal Kombat and there's the towers and you're slowly beating your way up to the top of the tower, and there's like 3 really difficult bosses. They're all really hard. There's obviously a main one, but there's a bunch of really hard ones. That's essentially this top bracket right now. Is Ballistics and MVP Black are both really difficult, and you're gonna have to beat one of them. So we will see how that goes. But that's it for this, guys. Hopefully you've learned a lot, and I've kind of given you some insight on to the Heroes meta. I think that most of these teams are all going to play a very similar style. Again, we're going to see so much global. We're going to see a lot of double stun tank, just as always. All the meta picks basically are still there. I don't think we're going to get surprised by anything. The only thing that would surprise me are going to be first bans if people start changing the patterns on that. But that's going to be it for today, guys. I apologize for being out of commission for a week. I took a break. I had family visit. I had I was hanging out with Michelle. We had an anniversary that we celebrated, so there was just a lot going on this past week that slowed down my videos, but I'm going to get back on it now, and then obviously when I go to BlizzCon, I'm going to be able to videotape a bunch of stuff there. After BlizzCon, I want to do another one of these videos talking about, what happens after, as far as my expectation goes, how right, how wrong was I, and kind of have a follow-up and talk with you guys about it all. But for now, guys, I'm out of here. Thank you all so much for checking out my video. If you did like this video, please make sure to throw a like below and subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can always check me out on Twitch and Twitter, which are both going to be located below, as well as look at my tier list, as a lot of the tier list stuff is pretty much even to a lot of how these teams are drafting. So I do have videos talking about that list as well. But I'm out of here, guys. Thank you again so much for swinging by, and I will see you guys all after BlizzCon. Cheers.